not start the Nixon administration.
Oh man.
No, we gotta go to Ford.
So we're just driving straight to Ford. Okay.
Well, we're off to a great start here. Hey,
Let's go.
welcome back to the Hack Fraud Show. No preamble. We're just getting right into it.
I'm John.
I'm Tyler.
That
Why
man
did we
is
do
Garrett.
this on a Monday?
we are
And we're all miserable.
because we had to record this episode on a Monday. But guys, get excited! It's the grand finale of the Summer of International Film. Woo!
Oh, yay! We're gonna get back to American mediocrity.
Yeah, maybe. We might go to Canada first. I have some ideas, but
Okay, that's a good idea.
anyway, yes. So we're closing out our series with the work of Hong Kong director Johnnie To. Great name. Good place to finish, I think. You know, looking back on this series, it's been a wild ride. There's a lot of stuff we wanted to get to and didn't get to. There's some things we maybe regret doing. I know I kind of regret pushing for a Mike Lee episode back there at the beginning.
Yeah, but you know, we saw some great filmmakers along the way.
We certainly did. That experience I had watching Red Shoes and Life and Death of Colonel Blimp pretty much back to back. Oh, and Black Narcissus. Those three, like, pretty much back to back to back. That is an experience I will cherish forever.
I adored Kieslowski in the Three Colors trilogy, and when we went back, when we went back and did his films.
Yes, lots of great stuff there. What else did we even do? I'm trying to remember here.
Well, we didn't do fucking. Oh,
We weren't going to do Imuli.
maybe that's for the best. Because you would have said this movie's dumb. I hate this movie. Why is there a dead body in the trunk for most of this? Why is this a plot point? Fuck this movie. Fuck this German guy. I'm out.
Hey! I would never do that.
Yeah. Ingmar Bergman week, I think I will always treasure. Those
I would treasure that too.
Those 2 weeks of Korean cinema were just the best.
Oh my god, that was joy. Fucking Bong Joon-ho.
Bong Joon-ho, yeah. We didn't get around. I still haven't seen Okja.
I genuinely don't know whether you'd like it, but I still want you to see it.
I
just
have to
know
see
what
it
you think.
eventually. I will see it eventually.
It's batshit crazy.
I've made this promise to myself. But anyway, yeah, it's been a wild ride. I'm glad we got to close it out with some Hong Kong films. Although John's comments to me just before we started recording may indicate that we might be in for a bit of a...
I'm glad we landed back on Hong Kong to see... When did we do... Well, it's been a while since we've done, like, proper Hong Kong cinema.
That was a while ago. We did... The John Woo week was, I want to say back in February, maybe?
It was in March.
I think it was a bit later than February.
Oh no, you're right. It was definitely in March because it was after the 1 year anniversary show.
Yeah.
I remember that now. Okay. Well, anyway, so we've had a good time. We're going to get into running out of time and drug war here in a little bit. But first, the age-old question: what have we been watching? Which, as promised, will include some more in-depth thoughts on Darren Aronofsky's Mother, which I have now seen. But does anyone else have anything they'd like to discuss first?
Well, I'll start with this. I saw a 3-hour movie about the New York Public Library called Ex Libris.
How was it?
It was boring as paste, but not entirely for the reason that it's a 3-hour movie about the New York Public Library, because the movie does, like, have some transcendent moments. Like, there's a moment where they go to a library branch kind of amid like a sort of poorer black neighborhood, and the conversations they have about McGraw-Hill and the place of the library and the place of the African-American community and education is fascinating. And there's also, like, they also have, like, it's a movie sort of built around, like, showing us, like, things that occur at the library. We see after-school programs. We see people from university. We see public speakers. We see the boardroom meetings about the library. And, like, it kind of all frames it as, like, the connecting thing is that, like, the public, this public space that's also founded by private money. That's one, and is also kind of run by like a business alongside as a kind of a charity. And it's kind of about that, like, dichotomy of that, but it's all kind of about, like, the sort of space that it brings and, like, the value of public spaces. And in fact, it kind of plays like a commercial for the New York Public Library, which is weird. But, like, I'm not entirely sure it quite knows what like, having this public space really means, what having this platform for these people really means. It just kind of shows it to us and says, isn't this awesome? Mm-hmm. And then kind of move on. I mean, it is kind of awesome. It's great to have, like, these big sprawling public spaces where you can have public conversation and after-school sessions and discussions about the African-American experience. But I just think it's just a little bit too meandering, and the filmmaking is all built up of static shot of speaker and then a shitload of reaction shots, some of which are people sleeping, which I think tells us a lot about what it thinks its audience is.
I mean, you say 3-hour documentary about a library, and I think most people are going to automatically assume it's maybe stretched a little thin.
Yeah, I mean, like, my issue with it isn't that it's like a 3-hour movie about the public library. I just think that, like, it should. I mean, honestly, like, the library can be a fascinating place, and like some of, like, the best documentaries have come out of nothing, like the fucking Helvetica movie. But I just think it just doesn't really know what its point is, other than, like, hey, look at this kind of cool space here, and look at these cool people.
Yeah. I almost hate to ask, but just briefly here, what's the Helvetica movie?
It's a movie about a font.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Does it have comics?
And apparently it is fascinating, so I've been told.
My roommate a long time ago watched a documentary on competitive Scrabble that he has never shut up about since. Okay, then.
Just wrong button.
That's all right. That's all right. No, I haven't seen the competitive Scrabble documentary, but he says it's excellent.
You can make a fascinating documentary out of anything. That's just something I hold dear.
Yeah.
I've also been alongside of my documentary class. I've been watching also a lot of propaganda and so forth. And I'm not going to talk about that, but I am going to talk about some of the reality shows I saw for my TV course.
Hit me. I'm ready.
Survivor, where, like, the premise is we're going to put people on an island, but they're divided by race.
Oh, no. Was that a season?
It's just as uncomfortable as it sounds.
Was that a season? Oh, no.
And it's just a bunch of people saying over and over, and it's a bunch of people attempting. It's so strange because it both tries to break stereotypes of its people, but also ends up reinforcing it just through the basis of its own premise. And it's so weird. It's so weird.
Yeah.
And I just have nothing to say about it other than, like, what is this bizarre spectacle unfolding on my laptop from 2006 of all times?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, but though granted, I did see a good thing for my TV course, which was the first episode of Fargo.
Ooh.
What a strange episode of television.
It is. But
I really like it.
It's really good.
Yeah, it's about Martin Freeman as some like put upon, like, little sort of, what can I say? He's just kind of incompetent and doesn't know how to fight back.
Yeah.
And he's faced with, like, bullies from his childhood.
He's the ultimate like, loser. The ultimate stereotypical loser.
And then, but there was at the same time a plot about a mobster, and, like, him putting someone in the trunk of his car and he eventually meets up with Martin Freeman and tells him to kill the bully.
This mobster delightfully played by Billy Bob Thornton.
Yes, yes. Last time someone talked like that to me, I pissed in his gas tank. Oh, man, there's a young man pissing in a gas tank. Motherfucker!
Oh my god.
Yeah, this episode of television is delightful.
Yeah.
Whilst also having wife murder in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like, Martin Freeman's wife is like very emotionally abusive and just always ragging on him, and then he kills her, and you're immediately kind of like, oh
no! So I'm watching this show, and then the cops come to the house, and then Billy Bob Thornton comes to the house, and then Billy Bob Thornton leaves, and the way Martin Freeman evades the cop is running into a brick wall to make himself faint.
Yeah, the first season of Fargo, I really do like it. I mean, I'm on the record as saying, like, season 2 of Fargo is one of my favorite things ever made.
Oh, like, just from what I've seen, season 2 of Fargo is a masterpiece.
Season 2 of Fargo, it's much more stylized and heightened than, not heightened really, but like, it's bigger.
There's some weird stuff going on.
Yeah. But it's bigger than the first season. But the first season is...
It feels a piece with the actual movie more so than anything else they've done.
Yeah, for sure.
But other than that, a delightful episode of television.
Oh yeah. I would urge everyone to check it out.
I would too. I think that's everything else of note. I haven't been able to watch much because, again, my schedule just fucked me. But, Reed, what have you seen?
Okay, well, I guess one good thing about doing this on a godforsaken Monday is that I was able to finish a movie for my geography class.
Ooh.
Yes. In the Geography 101 movie series, we decided to take a look at culturalism and blends of culture and commodification of that. So the title is fucking weird. I'll introduce it last. This is a Gurinder Chadha film. She is a Indian director from Kenya, lives in Britain, and she directed a movie about a Sikh girl who loves soccer, but her parents don't want her to play soccer.
I know what this movie is!
Yes.
I haven't seen it, though.
The movie is called Bend It Like Beckham, which comes from the main character, Jess, her love of soccer, mainly in David Beckham, because this is when David Beckham was big, back in, like, the early 2000s, so...
Yeah.
Back when the world was a desolate wasteland.
Kind of. Yeah.
This sounds like a thing.
Yeah, so directorially, in terms of cinematography and, like, director style, it's pretty bland, but sort of what I caught on was more like the story, how baked in risks were. And especially so, because you have, this protagonist, Jess, loves football. I'm going to use football, not the American football NFL shit. No.
Yeah.
Actual international football.
Yeah.
So she plays football, and then someone asks her to be on a team, and then we learn more about this person who asks, this girl called Jules, whose mother thinks that she is a lesbian throughout the whole movie, and then reveals it, and then so that takes its turn, and I'm not sure how I feel about that, but yeah, it's a thing.
Reinforce social conditioning over women.
That, yes. So there's a lot of contrast between a traditional role of women and, Indian Sikh culture is to learn how to cook, be wedded off, and take part in the family, which is huge. But that conflicts with her love of football, and then she has a love interest for this coach, and then there's back and forth banter between sneaking out to go to football games, one of them in Germany, and and they're in London, by the way.
Is this cool?
And you get this. I was on the edge of my seat, and I don't know.
I'll call that good.
This is a rather pedestrian movie. It's rather accessible. I mean, because it's like, love of football versus do this thing I don't like.
Whatever draws you in, man. Whatever draws you in. There are no shames around here.
Accessible movies aren't inherently a bad thing. I think we tend to forget that on this show sometimes.
Yeah. Wait, what?
I said accessible movies aren't inherently a bad thing. I think we tend to forget that on this show sometimes.
I mean, we talk about blockbusters all the time.
That's true.
Although this... Oh, okay, I guess this was a blockbuster. I guess it made $70 million.
This movie was a pretty big hit.
Profit, so, yeah.
I've definitely heard of it before.
This has a happy ending, which, okay. And it's weird how
Beckham is not going to have some staring into the soul dark ending.
Yeah.
Reed,
That would have been...
Reed, you mean to tell me this movie didn't end with the main character discovering that God is a spider and wants to kill us all?
I guess Bergman wasn't a reference source material. I guess no. But it does end with the love interest playing cricket with the protagonist's dad at the end, and there's a whole thing about like the dad and racism in cricket that he avoided it forever, and then so I guess coming to fruition on that arc of him going back to play in spite of facing racism because most of the people in the UK are white. So
that's fun.
Oops.
This sounds interesting.
So far, this is the best movie in the Geography 101 movie series.
It's better than a lot of movies I'm being shown in non-film classes, such as this god-awful American Revolution movie I'm watching in one of my history courses.
Racism. Okay.
Yes, racism.
Yes. Okay. So I gotta ask another days-old question. What's the deal with Mother?
Oh boy. Oh, okay. Are you ready to talk about Mother?
Spoiler. No.
Hang on.
Let's go.
Hang on. I just want to get in one fun fact about Bend It Like Beckham. This was the first ever Western-made film to air on television in North Korea. So there you go. Something to do with their relations with England. You can look into that on your own time. Okay.
Interesting.
Oh, what the fuck?
Yeah, there you go. Anyway, I also just wanted to say that I'm a couple more episodes in, and I'm now officially enjoying Twin Peaks. So look for more updates on that. But let's get into Mother, shall we?
Tyler,
yeah.
What did you think about this inimitable crowd pleaser, Mother?
Well, John, when this movie ended, I saw a very late showing. It was like an 11 o'clock p.m. showing on a Sunday. Yeah. There were a few other people in the theater besides me and my roommate who I was seeing it with. Mm-hmm. Minute the credits start to roll, guy in the row in front of us stands up and goes, "That was the stupidest movie I've ever seen in my life."
It's the Moonlight thing. It's like when me and Reed saw Moonlight at the gateway, and the guy just stood up at the end and said, "This is some bullshit," and just walked off.
Yeah. So I will
cherish those moments.
Yeah, I will cherish that forever. But let me tell you what happened. What?
I feel like I need to say this. If you are, for whatever reason, listening, you did those things. Go see more movies in theaters and keep doing that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And you didn't have any screaming babies in the theater?
No screaming babies, thank Christ. But when this movie ended and the credits started rolling, I chuckled. And I kept chuckling for a little bit there. Now, okay.
It's the only natural response.
Okay. So this movie, you've probably heard all about it by now. It's been extremely divisive. It follows Jennifer Lawrence as the much younger wife of a celebrated poet played by Javier Bardem. They live in their isolated little country house out in the middle of nowhere.
There's not even a road going up to it. It's just out there in the grass.
Nothing. Then one day, Ed Harris, playing a man, just a man, shows up, and Javier Bardem invites him to stay in the house, much to the consternation of Jennifer Lawrence. Then his wife, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, shows up, and things just get crazier from there.
Yep.
And, John?
Yeah.
I really liked this movie. But not only did I really like this movie, I found it very entertaining.
There was no... Once this movie hits its peak, you aren't going to be sleeping.
All right. Look, all right, we're just gonna go full spoilers on this because it's been out for a few weeks now. I mean, I kind of had the central allegory of this movie spoiled for me in a review that I read, which is that Jennifer Lawrence is Mother Earth and Javier Bardem is God, basically.
Baby's Jesus, yada.
Yeah, but I really do think that even if I hadn't read that, I would have figured it out, because around the half-hour mark, the allegory becomes very obvious. What happens is, Jennifer Lawrence tells, Michelle Pfeiffer and Ed Harris, don't go in his study. He doesn't like it when people go in his study. So they go in his study. And, minutes later, Jennifer Lawrence sees Michelle Pfeiffer and Ed Harris having sex. So, it's the Garden of Eden. And then
so strangely.
And then Domhnall Gleeson wanders into the movie, along with his brother, again, very obviously playing Cain and Abel. Yeah. But man, there's just so much going on in this movie. Just more and more people start to show up. Just kind of coming into the house. Jennifer Lawrence gets more and more, exasperated and paranoid.
The house almost starts wilting around her.
She's like, no, don't sit on the counters. No, don't do that. No, don't pee in my sink.
I don't think anyone pees in the sink, but things like that happen.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I said, when the movie was over, was, that was the weirdest environmental movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Because this movie definitely has an environmental element. I wouldn't say that's the only thing at play here.
Yeah, and I also think, Javier Bardem as God is hardly the only way to read that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my roommate read it more as, a critique of, artistry and celebrity culture, which... I think that's there. I certainly don't think that's the biggest theme at play in the movie.
Yeah, I saw it a lot as about Death of the Author, how the author himself is the author as this massive prophetic figure that we bow down before, which literally happens in this movie.
Right, and
it's just kind of sham and unnecessary. It makes us all look insane. And
that's all interesting, but you also get the sense from this movie. I mean, this movie is about God. And this movie is about, Darren Aronofsky seems to be really angry at God. And I can endorse that. And also, I mean, there is Holocaust imagery in this movie which takes place entirely in a house. So...
Oh, yeah. The house becomes a war zone. Yeah. The house becomes a full-blown SWAT team, people die war zone.
Yes, Reed.
I'd like to make a confession. I've been hitting the mute button on my computer because I kind of still want to see this movie.
You should see it.
Just hitting the button again, just to see where you guys are.
When you're curious, go see it.
Mute the button. Hit mute again because I'm about to drop another big spoiler.
I mean, I know Javier Bardem and has the imagery of God and shit like that. So I'm gonna hit it again. Fine.
Okay, but so John, toward the final act of this movie, Jennifer Lawrence gets pregnant, carries the baby to term in less than a day of movie time.
Yeah,
baby is Jesus, obviously.
Yeah,
at least I thought so. So what happens is she's Javier Bardem is we should go out and because they're sequestered in his study. He's we should go out and show him to the people.
Has, trapped them.
Yeah, he's we should go out and show him to the people. And Jennifer Lawrence is no, are you crazy? And so she there's a long scene of her holding the baby and him just staring at her.
And attempting to stay away.
She eventually falls asleep and he takes the baby while she's asleep. The crowd takes the baby, breaks its neck, and feasts upon its entrails.
Yep.
And John, I'm going to sound like a complete sociopath, and I realize this, but
Yep.
when that happened, I chuckled.
I'm not gonna lie,
because
the shitty CGI baby is kind of funny.
Okay, but that's not why. It's because, as a kind of lapsed Christian, I thought seeing someone dramatize the idea of communion and the body and blood of our Lord Jesus Christ in that way, I found that very hilarious.
That's I didn't think it was funny, but yeah, you're kind of right. You're kind of right.
I mean, look, I cannot fathom, understanding the allegory does not get me any closer to why Darren Aronofsky chose to dramatize it this way.
Like, I genuinely, it is such a strange watch. Just like, no matter even if you know the plot, if you know all the allegories, you cannot fathom, like, how they decide to shoot it, how they decide to act through it, how they decide to dramatize it.
Yeah. So that's... I really like this movie. I don't know how often I'm going to rewatch it going forward, but I found it to be an oddly entertaining and enjoyable and moving experience.
I don't know. I found the beginning to be kind of slow, but like once
it...
But it, at a certain point, it does ramp up and it becomes really entertaining. I will not deny that. I guess I have a bit too weak a stomach for it, but many have enjoyed it. Many have not liked it.
Like me.
I am a neutral proponent of it, and I merely speak of its insanity.
I also think, like, recognizing, for me at least, recognizing that, like, none of this movie was, like, really meant to be taken literally really helped me, like, be more okay with the violence and the gruesomeness than I would have been otherwise.
Like, I didn't have that going for it. I was just told there's some Bible shit, and that's it.
Okay.
I was not told that, like, it's all a grand allegory and so forth. So at the very beginning, I'm like, oh my god!
Yeah. So that's Mother.
That's Mother.
Fascinating movie. I really can't say, I can't guess how anyone is going to react to it, but I would encourage anyone who has at least a passing interest in film to go and see it.
Oh yeah, it is. It's kind of the It movie.
In a weird way, yeah.
It's kind of the It movie. But, Tyler, what else have you seen?
That's pretty much it. I have not had a lot of time to watch other things, but shall we get into Hong Kong's Johnnie To here?
I would love to.
Reed, are you still muted?
No.
Okay, good. All right, so Johnnie To, director from Hong Kong, he's directed just a shitload of movies over the course of his career. Yeah. And these are the only two that I've seen. I can't imagine, I mean, unless you're totally devoted to it, I can't fathom that many people have seen, like, more than half his catalog. So
yeah, well, like some film, it's like trying to see like every Nicolas Cage movie. Like, no one's that big a fanatic.
Yeah.
Well, except with no one wants to actually see every single Nicolas Cage movie.
Well, beyond that, but like even if you like made it a goal, you can't do it.
Yeah.
Although I do know people who would want to do that.
Oh no,
they're insane. But Johnnie To.
Yes. Yeah. So, where do we want to start here? Should we start with running out of time? Should we go chronologically?
Yeah. Let's do running out of time.
Okay, running out of time. So, one thing I love about these Hong Kong action movies, and this is not unique to Johnnie To, is that they just, like, throw you in without really, like, any time at all really spent on the setup. Like, this movie, you get, like, they take, like, 30 seconds to, like, introduce you to this character. Like, they kind of vaguely intimate to you that, like, he has cancer and he's planning something. And
he is quite literally running out of time.
Yes. In a very literal sense.
Yeah, in a very little. And there's, like, this giant, like, sort of grandiose shot with, like, him atop the skyscraper, the Kowloon's walled cities below. And it's, like, this whipping thing.
Love that. Then we, like, smash cut to a police unit investigating a hostage situation we're introduced to
this movie does not take a goddamn break.
We're introduced to kind of our other main character who is kind of a skilled negotiator.
He kind of reminds me of one of my chemistry professors, to be honest. I'm going to be honest.
Okay. Sure. Anyway, God, what is that guy's name? I can't even remember now. Officer, I'm gonna look this up. Should have looked it up before. Okay. Inspector Ho. Inspector Ho. That's his name. And then the central criminal of the film is named Chung. He's known only as Chung. Yep. And so he basically drags the police into his kind of twisted game where he basically is like leading them on a merry quest to like break up a like diamond smuggling operation, I think. It's kind of unclear.
It kind of turns into a Nietzsche look up into the abyss. The abyss looks down at me, but also framed as a cat and mouse chase movie.
It's a cat and mouse chase movie, but like it's also kind of a buddy comedy in a weird way.
Yeah, because like there's just like scenes of them like just interacting like they're old friends.
Yeah. Very much in the vein of John Woo's The Killer. I mean, that's an easy
both
comparison.
of these movies have a lot of John Woo.
Yeah. Which is great, because we love John Woo.
Yes.
But this movie, I enjoyed it a lot. It's a very fun movie. I've never seen a Hong Kong action movie that I found to be boring.
Yeah.
These movies just blast from beginning to end, and this one is no exception. I love so many things in this movie. Just the relationship between Chung and Ho is just great. Like, they're just sparkling repartee.
Super kinetic, super fun.
Yeah.
And like there are just some like moments of transcendent filmmaking, like the scenes where he's on the bus and like you see the woman there and they try to hide. Absolutely wordless.
Yeah. Absolutely wordless. And it's great because like the first time like Chung goes on this bus and like the police stop the bus, so he sits next to this woman and like pretends to like be like, you know,
in like a loving relationship.
Like,
puts his arm around her.
And she like kind of leans on his shoulder and whatever. Like the second time he gets on the bus and sees her, like she kind of makes the move to do that when the police stop them. It's a great little just development of a relationship over like a few different, like that could be its own short film, like in and of itself.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, I love that. Reed, what did you think of this movie?
I like this movie. I liked it quite a bit, actually.
It's a good time.
You continue.
No, go ahead.
I guess it's kind of this has more of it than when we're going to talk about Drug War, but like I'm going to relate this to John Woo, not insofar as like, oh, it's all so insane, it's so kinetic, that it's all so quick, that sort of thing, but insofar as that like these are just really fast-paced action movies with a heart.
Yeah.
And like in John Woo movies, that is just so pervasive throughout like just every scene that like these characters are just really endearing and kind of sweethearts despite everything they do. That you don't get quite the same thing out of this. Though like the buddy cop stuff is really endearing.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And we will probably talk about that a little more with Drug War, but I do agree, but I don't really mind that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, certainly these movies maybe don't hit me as hard as like The Killer or Hard Boiled did, but this movie I think is just a blast and super fun. And like I love the scene, like the kind of the climactic like showdown comes down to this meeting at a bowling alley, and Chung shows up like dressed as a woman to like continue this misdirect. Like just the sheer fun he has with just fucking with these police officers while also kind of helping them is is wonderful.
That core of the movie is really great.
Yeah.
I guess like I just wish it just had a little bit more gusto and like it's like the editing's really quick and there are some like moments of filmmaking bravado, but
he pulls out like every filmmaking trick in this. Like that big like over the head shot like that he does at the beginning. Like he'll do like those like kind of slow motion into like rapid motion kind of shots that like you only see in America and things like, I don't know, The Matrix. Like, I love all that stuff. I will agree with you that, I don't know, maybe it feels a little minor, but I do also think this movie kind of came like fairly early in his filmography, so maybe he was still kind of finding himself at this point.
I can't quite like say like exactly why this just didn't hit me as much as like say like a John Woo picture, because like a lot of the same components are here, a lot of that same the same ingredients are here, but I guess I really don't know actually, because like I think the core of the movie is really great. I think some of the action scenes are great.
I will say this.
I think maybe it just lacks a bit of focus.
It does. I think you're right about that. He can't really decide like whether he wants this movie to be about like this criminal like doing like one last big like kind of
I'm gonna die, I'm gonna go out big and do this
or if he
crazy
wants
thing.
to make it about like this loose cannon cop. And I mean, I don't know.
It's kind of about both, and that sort of thing.
It is a bit scattershot, but I just honestly like it's so much fun that like I'm kind of willing to overlook all of that.
Reed, what did you think?
I like the dynamic between the inspector and the fugitive, and I kind of feel bad for the fugitive almost towards the end. And then there's that one part where it's like, nah, maybe, but you did donate all that money, but
Well, there is like the one scene where like he's like he's at like he goes to dinner with the girl and he coughs blood into the water, and that's just like a really arresting image for me, because typically these things really don't have that sort of like aggressive biological detail to them.
Him coughing up blood in this movie is done like someone getting shot in a Tarantino movie. Like it's ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, it is genuinely disturbing at times. Yeah, it's Hong Kong. It's fun. It's got heart.
And part of my favorite part about this was yet again a musical score you could.
I love the score of this movie. They got like some weird like African sounding choir like in the background like during the emotional moments. I love that. I
love it. I was like, no other movie would do this, and I applaud it for that. Yeah, I think that's great too. I guess I just like the parts more than the sum. Yeah. I think that's just where I'm at. I'm kind of. I can't say I'm disappointed because I had a good time. I'm not going to deny that. I guess I was just expecting a bit too much, given like how much we enjoyed like John Woo and other Hong Kong films.
That's fair. Any closing thoughts?
Damn good score.
I love the score.
Score's great.
All right, so that's running out of time. We like it. Yeah.
It gets the Ebertian thumbs up.
Such as it is. But John, let's talk about 2012's drug war, shall we?
Drug war.
Well,
the beginning of this.
Well, like Jeff Sessions' denial of negative effects of this current drug war, I didn't see it coming. Nor did I see it. So, sorry.
Well, I'm just gonna say the beginning of this movie starts with a man coughing up. It almost looks like he's like foaming, like he's bit a cyanide pill.
Yeah. And
like he's driving erratically through the highway, and then crashes into a Chinese restaurant.
Yeah.
And then we cut to like there's like an escape on a bus that's like smoking because the coolant is not working.
Yeah. Okay, so this movie again, this is another one that just throws you right into it.
It just starts and you're in.
Yeah. Basically, this movie follows this police unit who arrest this man who's like kind of part of a meth manufacturing ring in Hong Kong, and apparently just manufacturing a very small amount of meth in China is enough to get you the death penalty. So in exchange for his life, this man whose name is Choi bargains to basically sell out his collaborators, or what's the word I'm looking for? Conspirators, like, and to try and bring down the drug ring with the police.
It's again Nietzschean. Cops are criminals. Criminals are cops. Looking up into the abyss. The abyss looks down at me. Everyone's the same.
Well,
yada yada. Moral planes.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Darren Franich, when he recommended this movie to me, kind of described it as watching a full season of a David Simon show, like crammed into 2 hours. David Simon show, i.e., The Wire, mainly, and he's kind of right. I think it doesn't have quite the nuance of something like The Wire, but it is.
I kind of agree with that. Yeah.
Well, you who've seen all of one episode of The Wire.
I can understand nuance in displaying.
No, you're right.
Police organizations.
You're right. I do kind of push back against the whole, like, cops are criminals, criminals are cops, because, like, the cops in this movie are fairly upright and upstanding. Like, I mean, they do use some kind of slightly shady techniques, but, like, nothing too extreme. I mean, the captain, like, does impersonate 2 different people to kind of get a drug bust done, but
yeah, well, that's just more in the case of like cops are imitating criminals are working for cops. That's sort of like everyone's play acting at a certain level, that sort of thing.
I guess just when we bring up that theme, I tend to think of it more as like blurring the line between cop and criminal, which
like with The Departed.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. This movie, I enjoyed it. It was a little. I think you talked about like kind of the emotional core like lacking in Running Out of Time. I mean, there is really no emotional core to this movie at all.
No, it is just a series of events about busting a drug ring and some vague themes about the Chinese about the Chinese institutional system.
Again, I don't mind that so much because this movie is very, very well made. It is like all the seeds of like an extremely competent filmmaker that we saw in Running Out of Time are just like really coming into full fruition here in terms of his skill for filmmaking and directing and all of that stuff. It is kind of a wild ride, and it twists and it turns.
It goes quick.
Yeah, it's quick. It twists, it turns. Like the performances are all great. Like there's not a miscast person in this movie. Like even the minor members of the drug ring are just perfectly cast. Those 2 guys who are just like stoned out of their minds, like while driving the truck full of meth supplies.
Just full of life and just seems to be just eating up the camera.
Yeah, those 2 like deaf mute or maybe just mute
they're just mute
like minions who kind of get dragged into everything toward the end of the movie. That's all. I love that. I don't know, I like it a lot. It's not essential by any means, I would say, but I enjoyed it a lot.
I don't know, I was mostly left cold by it because I guess I was just kind of like, who do I care about? Like, what am I supposed to really latch on to here?
Right.
I adore the ending. I think the ending is like this like perfect piece of like really dark cinema.
Well, that's interesting. I was just about to bring up like, I kind of agree with that because of the ending. Because like the ending, this movie just ends with literally every character you cared about getting shot and dying.
Yeah. And that's...
Sounds like Rogue One.
Yeah, but, I mean, better.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and there's like this really stunning scene, like one of like the final shots in the movie is like one of our conspirators getting like executed.
Yeah, and that's tough to watch. Like that's
honestly really effective cinema.
Yeah, that's great. I do also think that final like big shootout is very well staged and well executed, no pun intended.
Oh yeah, there was like, and it is just like I have not seen a single shootout like that.
Yeah,
to be honest,
I love it.
That many moving pieces, and
so
just
many moving pieces
that you can all keep track of.
And like at the end of it, I was kind of like, wait, did those kids ever get off that bus? And then the kids do get off the bus. Like the police lead them off the bus. I love that. So he definitely knows how to keep track of all the moving pieces. Like every action director should watch this scene as an example of how to stage an action set piece.
Yeah, and just like basic like action editing too, because like that just seems to go down the shitter lately.
Yeah.
But
yeah, there's a lot of really cool elements in this movie. I can't speak to like how accurate a portrayal of like, you know, police action and like drug culture in China is, but you know,
and I don't think you're ever going to get that from a mainland film.
Yeah, that's probably true, but I don't know. I mean, even if it is like westernized or hyper stylized, it's just a super compelling like portrait of that stuff. I think even if the emotional core maybe isn't quite there, it's an interesting thread to follow.
It is. I do enjoy the dynamics. I enjoy the cops. I enjoy just the insane ride they go on just to bust this ring.
Yeah.
I guess I just at the end of the day I'm just sort of left asking why.
Yeah. I mean, you don't get a sense of who any of these people are like outside of the action of the movie.
No. Like there is no like transcendent moment like with like the silent bus scene.
Well, other than kind of Choi, like he's informed that his wife and his children like died in an explosion at a factory or something, and like they have that scene where he like gets together with his kind of co-conspirators and they kind of burn money to like send it to the afterlife. Yeah. I kind of like that.
That is a nice moment, but I guess I just don't get as much out of it as the
sure
like the running out of time stuff. But
yeah. Well, the running out of time stuff is like transcendent.
Yeah, transcendent, and this is just memorable.
Yeah, I like all that. But there you go.
Yeah, I'm pretty lukewarm on it, but like again, like I wouldn't say don't watch it. It's still got some fascinating stuff.
I would.
It's a pretty great filmmaking.
I would definitely recommend watching it. It's an incredible just thing to see unspool in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
So I like all that.
So there we are.
That closes the book on Johnnie To and another summer over here at the Hack Fraud Show. There you go. That's
good. God, two summers.
2 summers. Wow.
That's hot.
I agree. We're still here, and we'll continue to be here, serving you that sweet podcasting magic.
Until life makes us stop.
There you go. I want to just see if I can...
Or nuclear fission.
Also that.
That's assumed.
That is
or nuclear fusion. We don't know.
Don't stretch us, Reed.
Let's not think about that too deeply. Yes, so it's been, let's see, 13 weeks. Now I think this will make 14 weeks.
Yep.
That's 29, 30, 31? 31 movies. Not all of which I saw. Not all of which all of us saw.
No.
I don't think there's not one of us that watched every movie that was prescribed which may be this was the first time I didn't watch a movie that the two of you watched, I think, which was The Marriage of Maria Brown.
Yeah.
But
it is what it is.
It is what it is. So thank you all for joining us on this ride, and yeah, until the next summer of whatever we decide to make next summer. But we still got a show to do, so what are we going to do next week?
Well, we wanted to start our sort of like horror movie catch-up, because like the modern sort of horror film revival is just a trend that has, like, despite our filmic presence, has just whipped us by.
Yeah, but we have a few weeks to do that, so I think to kind of ease us into that, and to kind of put a weird little button on this whole summer of international film.
Okay.
I thought maybe we could take a look at the work of the Canadian director, Mr. David Cronenberg.
I'm intrigued.
Oh, goody.
Now, what classics of Mr. Cronenberg are we to view?
Well,
I think I have an idea of what we're going to be watching.
I really want to see Scanners. That's a movie that has kind of been creeping
Yeah.
on me for a while here. That'd be a good one to watch. And then, do you have any suggestions?
Have you ever seen The Fly?
I have not seen The Fly. Interesting. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
I think like if I think Cronenberg week without The Fly would be a bit incomplete.
Okay. I'm on board for this.
Yeah.
All right, so we will watch David Cronenberg's The Fly, starring Jeff Goldblum, who I always like.
Oh, okay.
A classic Jeff Goldblum performance.
Yes, and we will watch Scanners, which I know very little about, actually, but
So do I.
I know even less.
From what little I know, I'm very intrigued. So, all right, coming your way next time.
Fast ye.
Prepare for a whole month of spooks, scares, and exploding
Mediocre
heads.
films.
Yeah, well, maybe. We'll see what happens.
See. I don't think that's going to happen this week. We're just going to get into... I guarantee there's going to be a week where we're just going to see 2 contemporary horror films. We're just going to say, what's the big fucking deal?
That might happen. But, I like to stay optimistic.
As do I.
All right. So, David Cronenberg.
Cronenberg week coming up.
Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Buzz.
The Fly. It's
Yes.
coming.
I got it.
Don't be a hack.
Be afraid.
It's late.
Be very afraid.
Did you study the Austro-Hungarian Empire?
More modern.
Aww.
Yeah.
Premise of the show. What the fuck are you doing to this podcast? You're ripping it to shreds!